Уважаемые товарищи, добрый день. Проведем сегодня
Dear
очередное
comrades,
совещание.
good evening. Today we will conduct our next meeting. At the last meeting, the main focus was on fulfilling tasks in the zones of responsibility of the Western and Southern groups of forces.
Выполнению задач
Regarding the Western
в
group
зоне
of forces, we talked about the situation overall in the zone of responsibility and the developments around the city of Kupyansk.
группировки «Запад».
As for the Southern group of forces, the commander reported on the situation in his zone of responsibility and on the combat operations in and around the city of Seversk.
города Купянск.
As for the Central and Eastern group of forces, here as well as along the entire combat line, the initiative is fully in the hands of our armed forces, and today we will continue our work. We will discuss in more detail the situation in the zones of responsibility of your groupings. Of course, first of all, I would like to receive information about the situation in the city of Krasnoarmeysk and how you see the further development of the situation in this area. As for the Eastern group of forces, I know the pace at which your troops are moving in the designated direction. Today, we have reached the city of Gulyaypole, and naturally, I would like to hear about the developments in and around Gulyaypole, but most importantly, what you propose to do in your zone of responsibility to ensure that the tasks assigned to your grouping are accomplished most effectively. At the last meeting, the Chief of the General Staff reported on the results of task completion in all directions, including these directions. The commander of the troops groupings will give more detailed information about the situation's development in your responsibility zones. Additionally, within the framework of today's event, we will consider the tasks facing the United Troops grouping, as well as discuss the most pressing issues of troops supply. Let's not forget that winter is coming, and this must be taken into account. The soldiers must be provided with everything necessary. Valery Vasilyevich, I also asked you to report on the situation in the zone of responsibility of the Northern Group of Forces, given that it has been tasked with creating a security zone along the state border. In this regard, I would like to hear about the situation in the area of the city of Volchansk and in Volchansk itself.
Поставленные перед вашей группировкой задачи наиболее эффективным образом. Начальник Генерального штаба на прошлом совещании докладывал о результатах выполнения задач на всех направлениях, в том числе и на данных направлениях, а командующий группировок войск более подробно доложить о развитии ситуации в зонах вашей ответственности. Кроме того, в рамках сегодняшних мероприятий рассмотрим задачи, стоящие перед войсками объединенной группировки, а также обсудим наиболее актуальные вопросы обеспечения войск. Не будем забывать, что подходит зимний период, и надо это иметь в виду. Ребята должны быть обеспечены всем необходимым. И, Валерий Васильевич, вас попросил, кроме всего прочего, доложить о ситуации, которая складывается в зоне ответственности группировки «Север», имея в виду, что перед ней поставлена задача создать зону безопасности вдоль государственной границы. И в этой связи хотел бы услышать, как складывается обстановка в районе города Волчанск и в самом Волчанске.
Товарищ Верховный Главнокомандующий, в соответствии с замыслом
Comrade Supreme Commander-in-Chief, in accordance with the concept of the special military operation, the troops of the Joint Group of Forces are advancing on a wide front. The command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine continues its attempts to de-block its encircled groupings on the Kupyansk and Krasnoarmeysk directions and seeks to halt our advances on the Krasnoarmeysk, Severodonetsk, Dnepropetrovsk and Zaporozhye directions. The Northern Group of Forces today completed the liberation of the city of Volchansk. Furthermore, in establishing a security zone in the border regions of the Sumy and Kharkov regions of Ukraine, an additional 3 localities came under our control in November. These are Sinelnikovo, Tsigelnoy, and Dvorochanskoy. The units and troops of the Western Group of Forces have focused their main efforts on the Krasnoarmeysk direction and the left bank of the Oskol River to defeat the encircled grouping after the capture of Kupyansk.
направлении.
They continue to tighten the ring to eliminate the encircled grouping, numbering approximately 15 battalions.
По разгрому окруженной группировки после взятия Купянска. И продолжают сжимать кольцо по ликвидации этой группировки заблокированной, численность ее порядка 15 батальонов.
В прошлый раз вы говорили.
Last time you mentioned, and I asked then, on the left bank of the Oskol River, can the enemy not escape south along the bank?
Не может уйти туда на юг, по берегу.
Нет, не может, потому что там по южнее этой окруженной группировки противника, там
No, he cannot, because south of this encircled enemy grouping, there is dense defence by the 1st Tank Army along the entire left bank. The defence is some 17 kilometres southward. An offensive is also developing on the Rubtsovsk and Krasnoarmeysk directions of the Western Group. The assault units of the Western Group of forces have entered Krasnoarmeysk and are currently fighting in the southeastern and eastern parts of the city. Street fighting continues in Drobyshevo and Yarovaya. This is in the Krasnoarmeysk direction. The southern group of forces advances in the northern part of the Donetsk People's Republic. In the Seversk direction, active combat operations have liberated the localities of Zvanovka, Vasyukovka and Petrovskoye. In Seversk itself, assault units of the 3rd Army are engaged in street battles and are expanding control zones in the northeast and southern areas of the city, liberating over 100 buildings daily. In the Kramatorsk-Druzhkovka direction, the southern group, the localities of Ivanopole have been liberated and street battles continue in Konstantinovka. The southeastern and eastern parts of the city of Konstantinovka have come under our control, encompassing more than 30% of the total number of buildings in Konstantinovka. The central group liberated the city of Krasnoarmeysk and continues to eliminate enemy units in Dmitrov. Additionally, part of the grouping's forces is successfully advancing into the Dnepropetrovsk region. The eastern group of forces continues to advance at a fast pace in the western direction, expanding the control zone in the Dnepropetrovsk and Zaporozhye regions. The Dnepr group of forces troops are advancing in the Zaporozhye direction, having encircled the locality of Stepnogorsk. Fighting is ongoing to seize Primorsk. In addition, the General Staff's plan continues with the retaliatory mass strikes on Ukraine's military-industrial facilities and energy infrastructure supporting them. Comrade Supreme Commander-in-Chief, the units and formations of the Joint Group of Forces will continue active offensive actions to fully liberate Donbass. The report is over. Thank you.
И энергетической инфраструктуре, обеспечивающей их функционирование. Товарищ Верховный Главнокомандующий, соединения и воинские части объединенной группировки войск продолжат ведение активных наступательных действий с целью полного освобождения Донбасса. Доклад закончен.
Спасибо. В целом мы наблюдаем, что войска объединенной группировки наращивают давление по всей линии фронта. В последние дни действительно установлен контроль над несколькими крупными населенными пунктами, которые имеют важное значение для дальнейших действий по освобождению всей территории, в том числе и той, которая еще находится под контролем противника. Командующий группировкой войск «Центр» Валерий Николаевич в ходе нашей встречи 25-го...
Overall, we are seeing the forces of the United Group applying increasing pressure along the entire front line. In recent days, control has indeed been established over several major settlements, which are crucial for further operations to liberate the entire territory, including those still held by the enemy. During our meeting on October 25th, Valeri Nikolaevich, commander of the Central Group of Troops, reported on the encirclement of the AFU group around the Krasnoarmeysk Dmitrov agglomeration. Valeri Nikolaevich, if I understood correctly, the city of Krasnoarmeisk is now in our possession? Yes. Could you please provide a more detailed report? The troops of the Central Group continue to carry out their tasks to defeat the enemy in the Dnepropetrovsk direction, in accordance with the plan approved by the Russian Armed Forces General Staff. In the Krasnoarmeysk area, the Second Army, supported by the 30th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade and the 506th, 439th and 1435th Motorized Rifle Regiments of the 27th Guards Motorized Rifle Division, has completed the liberation of Krasnoarmeysk. Currently, search and destroy operations are underway to locate and eliminate remnants of small enemy groups attempting to hide within the city. The enemy formations in Dmitrov are continuing to be neutralized. The southern part of the city has been fully liberated and a sweep is in progress. The enemy's grouping in the northern part is securely blocked. Attempts by the enemy to break out or unblock this group have been unsuccessful. It is estimated that between 1,500 and 2,000 enemy personnel are trapped in the northern part of the city. The enemy is repeatedly attempting to break through or escape from the city. However, as previously reported, these attempts have been unsuccessful. All assaults are being repelled and no breakthroughs are permitted. In accordance with your instructions, the troops are taking measures to create conditions conducive to the surrender of Ukrainian armed forces soldiers and to bring about an end to resistance. At the same time, the enemy command is doing its utmost to prevent this. According to Ukrainian soldiers who have laid down their weapons, they are being threatened with execution and reprisals against their families and friends if they surrender. We have also repeatedly recorded the destruction by Ukrainian FPV drones of fighters from the Ukrainian armed forces entering our positions with their hands raised. Additionally, we continue to push forward on the left flank towards Novopavlovka, which is the main defensive stronghold for the enemy in that sector. We are surrounding the settlement from the southwest, west, northwest, and east to encircle it. Comrade Supreme Commander, the Central Group of Forces continues offensive operations in all directions. All tasks assigned to our formations and units will be completed. That concludes the report. I'll come back to this later, but for now I want to thank you for your work with the Krasnoarmeisk, as well as the entire command and staff of the group, and of course, our personnel carrying out these combat missions. This is a crucial area. We all recognize its importance, and it will enable us to consistently address all the main tasks we face, which were initially set at the outset of the special military operation. Thank you. I serve Russia. Comrade Supreme Commander, the Western Group of Forces is executing its tasks in the Zaporozhye region in accordance with the plan of the special military operation. Units are actively advancing in the south of Dnepropetrovsk and the eastern parts of Zaporozhye. The offensive by the 5th, 29th and 36th Armies is progressing along a broad front. Today, the 37th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade of the 36th Army has completed the liberation of the village of Dnepropetrovsk. Over the past week, Novo and Zatyshy settlements in the Zaporozhye region, as well as Tiko and Otradnoy in Dnepropetrovsk, have also been liberated. Since November 1st, more than 360 square kilometers of these regions have come under the group's control. 7 settlements have been liberated in Dnepropetrovsk and 12 in Zaporozhye. Currently, units of the 29th and 36th Armies are expanding their control along the eastern bank of the Gulyaypole River. Additionally, units of the 5th Army entered Gulyaypole yesterday, established a foothold on its outskirts, and are engaged in street fighting to dislodge the Ukrainian armed forces from the village. The offensive in this sector is ongoing. Comrade Supreme Commander, the destruction and containment of the enemy in the Zaporozhye direction is being carried out in accordance with the plan approved by the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces. All objectives assigned to the Western Group will be achieved. How do you see the situation developing from here? Moving forward, Comrade Supreme Commander, the priority will be to overcome the enemy on the left bank of the Gulyaypole River. This will enable us to push further westward towards the border with the Dnepropetrovsk and Zaporozhye regions, as well as to seize the Gulyaypole defensive area, including the central position in the city of Gulyaypole. Andrei Sergeyevich, your troops are advancing at a pace that ensures all our objectives will be achieved. I mean, with this rate of our offensive, the enemy simply isn't able to respond effectively. Currently, in the area overseen by the Central Group, they are closely monitoring the situation around Krasnoarmeysk. Did I understand correctly that the enemy is trying to block Krasnoarmeisk at any cost, regardless of losses? And, in my opinion, realizing that this is no longer feasible, they still keep throwing more units into the fight, almost to the point of slaughter. No exaggeration. If we consider that, aside from the nationalist and neo-Nazi battalions, the Ukrainian armed forces are mostly composed of workers and peasants, then they don't show much mercy to ordinary soldiers. Does what I've just said correspond with reality? Yes, that's correct. The nationalist battalions do not take part. They refuse this task. Instead, it's the newly conscripted and mobilized men who carry out the operation. They demonstrate that these are recently drafted, untrained recruits. They're heading straight towards Krasnoarmeysk, with dozens and even hundreds dying there. That's the attitude, of course. I believe it's evident as it continues. But what's really happening is the complete extermination of their own people. That's what our officers are observing on the battlefield, isn't it? This is being monitored by our officers, soldiers, air defense reconnaissance units, and FPV drones. The forest belts are strewn with the bodies of Ukrainian soldiers. I see. This is the tragedy of the Ukrainian people, which is linked to the criminal policies of the thieving junta that took power in Kiev. Dear comrades, the armed forces of the Russian Federation confidently maintain the initiative and continue to carry out the objectives of the special military operation. Russian troops are advancing on almost all fronts. It is also evident that the systematic destruction of enemy formations on the left bank of the Oskol River is progressing well. I would also like to highlight the effective actions of the units and formations of the Central Group in the liberation of the city of Krasnoarmeisk. Of course, it's impossible to single out specific successes of the Western Group's assault units operating in the Zaporozhye direction. As I have already mentioned, the pace of the offensive in this sector is impressive. I ask you to extend my gratitude to all personnel and commanders involved in these operations for this challenging but vital work for our country. Thank you. The commanders of the military groups must continue to execute their tasks strictly in accordance with the plan of the special military operation. And as I have already stated, this concerns, of course, the Ministry of Defense, and the General Staff need to consider how to support the troops during the upcoming winter.
Отмечаю также эффективные действия соединений и воинских частей группировок «Центр» по освобождению города Красноармейск. Безусловно, нельзя привести в пример и успехи штурмовых подразделений группировки «Восток», действующих на Запорожском направлении. Темпы наступления соединений и воинских частей на этом направлении, как я уже говорил, впечатляют. Прошу передать слова благодарности всему личному составу группировок, командному составу за эту тяжелую, но очень важную для нашей страны работу. Благодарю вас. Командующим группировкам войск необходимо продолжить выполнение задач в строгом соответствии с замыслом специальной военной операции. И я уже говорил об этом. Это, конечно, Министерство обороны, Генштабу нужно подумать о снабжении войск в наступающий зимний период.